Hello, OT friends, and welcome to the Uncommon OT series. I'm Patricia. I'm the Transitions OT, and I'm your host. Today, I am beyond thrilled and honored to introduce you to our guest, Dr. Amy Lamb. Yes, you heard me right, Dr. Amy Lamb. I was fortunate enough to be connected with Dr. Lamb through another OT colleague, Lauren Sheehan, and I just feel so fortunate to be able to have you on our platform. Before we get into it, I'm going to just read a little bit of your bio for those who may not be familiar with who you are, or for those who are just interested in learning more about the details. So Dr. Lamb is the founder of Meraki and Me and the owner of AJ Lamb Consulting and an associate professor of occupational therapy at Eastern Michigan University. She's the immediate past president of the American Occupational Therapy Association, serving in that role from 2016 to 2019. She has previously served the American Occupational Therapy Association on its board of directors as its president-elect from 2015 to 2016 and vice president from 2012 to 2015. Dr. Lamb is a past chair of the American Occupational Therapy Political Action Committee from 2006 to 2012, and she brings with her the valuable combination of clinical practice as a licensed OT combined together with her healthcare policy experience at the state and federal levels. Dr. Lamb's expertise includes health policy, advocacy, prevention and wellness, leadership development, organizational change, managing professional burnout, and professional well-being in occupational therapy as a career. Dr. Lamb received both her Bachelor's of Science in Occupational Therapy and her post-professional Doctor of Occupational Therapy from Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska. Her policy experience began in the Minnesota House of Representatives working with the Health Policy Committee, and from there she went on to be employed by the Nebraska Occupational Therapy Association as their registered lobbyist from 2000 to 2008. Dr. Lamb's clinical expertise spans from private practice, school-based pediatrics, acute care, home health, hospice, older adults, and management. In 2011, she received the AOTA Lindy Boggs Advocacy Award for her leadership in advocacy and political action in the profession of occupational therapy. In 2012, Dr. Lamb was selected to join the American Occupational Therapy Association roster of fellows. Dr. Lamb was the 2014 recipient of the Eastern Michigan University College of Health and Human Services Everett L. Marshall Fellow Award for Excellence in Service. In her volunteer leadership positions, Dr. Lamb is part of the team that helps occupational therapy professionals understand AOTA's policy and quality agendas. She is integral in articulating the distinct value of occupational therapy in traditional and emerging areas of practice, including primary health care and wellness initiatives. She speaks regularly to groups on health policy issues impacting practice, emphasizing quality services for beneficiaries, and provides participants with practical ways to get involved in the process and make their voices heard. Dr. Lamb works to help practitioners, students, educators, and researchers identify their role as influencers of change in their daily work as we demonstrate the value of occupational therapy to enhancing the efficiency of systems we work within, enhancing the quality of care clients receive, and being a cost-effective solution to meet the dynamic needs of the people, populations, and communities we serve. So Dr. Lamb currently resides outside of Dexter, Michigan, with her husband, Nathan, and their two emerging adult children, Gabby and Josh, and she strives to learn new things every day, enjoys running, yoga, reading, and mindfulness. So without further ado, I'd like to present to you Dr. Amy Lamb. Hi, Amy.
Hi, Patricia. It's so good to be with you. And I have to tell you, my least favorite part is hearing my bio read. I really need to edit that thing down. It's ridiculous.
Well, you've done quite a lot. And, I couldn't help but just be impressed every time. This is the second time I've read your bio after you sent it, and just so impressive, the work that you've done. So I'm so honored to have you on the show, and thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely. It's really good to be with you today.
Thank you. So let's start off a little bit by hearing about you. Tell us a little bit about Dr. Amy Lamb.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. It's interesting when I hear my professional side come together with my personal side. I love to be able to tell people about who I am as just a person. I will tell you my greatest gift in life has been to be a mom to those two emerging adult children. And, I aim and strive to be a good role model for them every day. I've been blessed to have a really wonderful professional career and to date, and I know that there's so much more to come. And I enjoy being able to help other people grow and navigate different paths that are ahead of them. And I really like to be able to use some of those creative pieces that come to us with occupational therapy in my work every day.
Thank you for sharing a little bit about that. I hear about you so much from a professional level, and I was so excited to have you on the show to hear a little bit more about the personal side, because that's really the theme of this podcast. It's to really bring to the surface the individuals who are these uncommon OTs and to talk a little bit about what brought them and what led them to these types of career paths, right? Specifically in OT. So I can't wait to have our listeners hear Amy Lamb's personal side of the story and Dr. Amy Lamb's path to this uncommon OT career that you currently have. So this might be a great way to segue into that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, something that I would want people to know is that I didn't come to OT knowing necessarily I was looking for it. I grew up rural. I grew up in rural Minnesota, and I remember my father telling me very early on that, like, in the rural communities, you just get whatever kind of healthcare is accessible to you. And then if you need something different, you hope that you can get to the big metro areas to be able to access it. And even as a kid, I remember thinking, well, that's not right. And we should change that. And so that was really a driving force for me getting into the healthcare side and really wanting, to make a difference in the access to care and the quality of care that everybody would have. And as I think about that, now I think about how impactful that was to me. And I also think about different experiences that I've had, and they always bring me back to communities and to people. So when I graduated with my bachelor's degree in OT, I had gotten this award that was Future Community-Based Practice Award. And I, I've thought about that a lot in the last couple of months as I've been making some of these transitions, because I really do believe that so much of what we have to offer people is, on this personal level, and it's helping them in developing themselves professionally so that they can impact the communities that they are in and that they can reach, but then also personally, as well, I think it's impactful. So it's been interesting to kind of see how all of these different things come together and how some of the experiences that we have over our life course make a little bit more sense the farther down the road that we get.
That completely resonates with me. I'm 20 years into my OT career, and I find, and of course I've had many, many transitions over time, and I find that things are blending in together, and they may be totally different aspects of OT, like mentoring or working or doing some coaching, but they're all blending in together, and it's feeling very seamless for me. And that's really just personally and professionally has been a very gratifying thing over the past year.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I kind of get a little bit of goose pimples as I say that, because it's so true. Mm-hmm. So, wow. So this is something that's been almost in your blood, wanting to help, wanting to be in communities, really wanting to make a change, right? So that's, lucky us that you decided to move into occupational therapy, because there's so much room for that. And, I love the message that you bring to the profession when it comes to being more innovative and thinking outside of the box. But before we get to that, may I ask you a little bit about how you got to this path? I know you talked a little bit about growing up in a rural area, that being a driving force and seeing that need at an early age. What happened next?
Yeah, I went to school for psychology initially, and I just really struggled with this idea of just sitting and listening to people talk about their problems. I wanted to be more active. I wanted to give them more active strategies. And so, back then we didn't have nearly the tools and resources that we have today at our fingertips to try and explore careers, right? So, I went to a library, tried to investigate an actual library with books. Yes. Tried to investigate different careers, stumbled upon OT, and then found a program that was it was in Omaha, Nebraska. It was Creighton's program, but my sister was also in Omaha. And so at the time, it made sense if I was going to be making this big, college shift that, wow, I could also have family in the area, which would be kind of nice. So I found it that way. And one of the things that I have always felt about OT is that it's such a wonderful profession because there's so much you can do with one degree. And there's not many fields out there like that. Mm-hmm. And so when you were reading my bio and talking about all the areas that I've worked within, what a gift that I was able to do all of that with my OT degree. I think that that's been a real asset for me, over the years. I will tell you, I bore easily. And so being able to move from different practice settings and have different experiences has been really vital in, keeping me engaged, but also keeping those creative juices flowing.
Yes.
And so I came into OT because I wanted to help people. Very simple. All kinds of people give that answer, right? Why do you want to be an OT? I want to help people. And I very quickly, though, learned that my ability to help people was going to be impacted by the systems that were surrounding individuals, by their environments, by the policies that were in place to be able to support that. And so, as I think about it, I think that is why my career looks like it does today. And it's been really interesting to kind of watch as it's kind of come together. So, I've had everything from, I started a nonprofit relatively early after I graduated from OT school. I've worked in, all the different practice settings that you shared. I've had my own consulting business for over 20 years where I've done everything from private practice clinically to being an expert reviewer for, or even doing program development. I've done a lot of program development over the years. I have a really strong understanding of policy and practice and how that comes together, but also the policy development process and the advocacy process. I've been fortunate to work in higher education, different parts of industry, corporations, executive leadership, all of these different sorts of things. And so at this point in my career, looking at what's the best way to be able to use those talents and those experiences, there was no one job that checked all those boxes. So that was something I had to spend a lot of time reflecting on. And something that is ingrained in me is this idea of making things better and trying to do what I can to make change happen when it needs to happen. And so I like to make things better for the people or organizations that I'm working with. And I like to help others be able to do that same thing in their space. I also am a systems thinker. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Clifton Strengths.
No, but not.
So I highly recommend it. I think it's a really great tool to be able to help identify what some of your strengths are. It's done through the Gallup organization, and strategic is my top strength. And so I have this ability to ask that question that nobody wants to have asked because we don't know the answer to. And in my brain, if we answer that question, we can solve all these other problems, right, that go around it. And that's my systems thinking too, that comes into place. So I can look at a system and I can see how it works. I can see where the challenges are, where the opportunities are, find the gaps very quickly, and say, well, let's go there. The challenge is sometimes my brain moves faster than other people's around me, right? And so I've learned how to kind of manage that a bit, but I've also learned how to lean into those strengths that I have. So, strategic, I have a lot of ideas. I think towards the future. I like to be able to individualize things so that there's no like cookie cutter approach to how we solve problems. So 20 years in, asking myself, how do I use all that knowledge and experience, and how do I maximize my reach? And where I landed was with this desire to really help lift other people up around me and help them make their part of the world better. And so I am a strong believer in the phrase, we rise by lifting others. Matter of fact, I have a wristband that I wear with that. When I left AOTA, I gave all of the employees at AOTA that wristband. I've given it to people who have been valuable on my journey. But the work I do every day is now focused on helping to make that difference in the lives of other people, and then the organizations that they are a part of, and then the people that those organizations serve. And so that's really how I landed in this current role of being an executive coach.
I love that. And I definitely want to delve deeper into what a typical day looks like for you as an executive coach in a second. I want to just go back. You said so many great things. I heard OT, OT, OT all over the place. I know you were talking about skills, being strategic, being creative in your ideas, being a forward thinker, right? Thinking about the goals. That's the way I sort of think about that, right? Or being goal oriented. What was the other one? Oh, not using a cookie cutter approach and really being individualized. I mean, those are just all sorts of OT skills. I think that came into play in addition to, you really understanding your audience and being able to build rapport with them and use the communication style that you need to use in order to be effective in your work with them. And just this whole idea of you wanting to help others, serve others better so that those individuals that they're serving will also be in a better place ultimately. So I love the holistic perspective of all of that. And just wanted to, quickly comment. I love that quote, we rise by lifting others as well. And I may actually just quote you on that because I quote all of my guests. So please tell us a little bit about your typical day in this new role of yours where you're applying all of these OT skills that we just mentioned.
Yeah, I think my days look so different from each other, though I've really learned how to create some space for, so my typical day, I have several clients scattered throughout my day. I purposefully leave time both before and after each client so that one, I can prepare for them so that I can be fully present for them. And two, so that I can reflect afterwards and really think about what might some of the tasks be that they can do to get closer to where they want to be, and also what questions do I really want to ask the next time. I ask a lot of questions, and I am a firm believer that most people, the answers lie within us. We just don't really fully often get to that place where we let them come out. And then when they do come out, sometimes we need that person, and sometimes it's a neutral person who has no buy-in on which direction we're going to pick, to be able to say, so what do I do next, right? And it's one thing to talk to your significant other or your partner about it, but they always have a buy-in on which direction you choose. And so that neutral person is really nice. And so I like to build in that reflection time so that I make sure that I'm giving that full self to my clients. I build in time just for my business, taking care of my business, making sure that I'm like doing all of the different things that I need to do there. I will also tell you, I'm a big believer in self-care, and I use it with all of my clients. I think that it's important. So I start my day by doing something for myself.
Lovely.
Yeah, what better gift to give yourself than like something just for you that isn't for other people, right? And so for me, that's oftentimes running. I love to run in the mornings if I can. It gets a little bit dicey here in Michigan in the winter to run in the morning, but you can bundle up most days and still
or maybe get a treadmill.
Yes, right. In the winter when I can't get outside and run, then I like to start with like yoga and doing a nice yoga routine in the morning. Okay. But again, something to like take care of myself and put myself in this space where I'm ready to then give parts of myself to others throughout my day. So
I love that.
Yeah, it's really a very purposefully designed day. And then I really do believe also in creating some of those boundaries for ourselves so that we shut work off. And especially for those who might have some of these uncommon roles, we might be working from home, or right now lots of people are working from home. I have doors on my office that I shut. And that's the sign to myself that the workday is over, and, to like let it go and pick it up again tomorrow. That's been really helpful, I think, as my kids have been growing, especially to make sure that like I have that time preserved for them.
Yes.
Now that they're teenagers, you just really never know when they're going to need you. So, and that's great too, right? It's a different kind of need. Sometimes they'll just like, my son will plop himself down in my office. He did this last night, and he'll just start to talk to me about the race that he had, and he'll process it, think about like what he can do different next time. And so again, creating space for that and boundaries. And so when he walks in my door, I just shut my computer, right? That's my sign. That's like, I'm yours. And so creating some of those spaces are all a part of my typical day.
Oh, I love that you have that relationship with your son where he can just plop down in your office and, Mom, what do you think?
Yeah, it's really fun. I enjoy it, and I'm glad that he does that, right? Like it's just fun.
Yes. And, again, these are the benefits of being able to work from home nowadays, right? Otherwise, you'd be at the office and that interaction wouldn't take place.
Yeah, absolutely. And, life is too short to miss some of those things. And so I'm a big advocate for not missing out on some of those small things.
I'm a big advocate in that too. And also in the idea of self-care and really making sure that we fill our cup in order for us to be able to, really offer any part of ourselves or be any good to others. And yoga is also one of my favorites. So thanks for sharing a little bit about what a typical schedule of a day might look like. Would you mind sharing with us a little bit about what a typical client might be working on, or typical goals that you may be working on with the client, and how those sessions might look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things that I love about my client base is it's very diverse in terms of especially like years of experience or, what people are looking to do. Though I do see some consistent trends amongst many. So different kinds of clients that I have. So my clients vary. I have female executives, anywhere from the entry-level executive to mid-level to the senior executive. Many of them are learning how to continue to enhance their skills for their team while also making sure that they try and like build in some of that time for family and self-care as well. I find that females, especially on the executive track, oftentimes like they go so hard and they're really working to prove themselves in their space that sometimes that self-care gets put on the back burner. And so helping them to prioritize that's definitely something that my female executives are working with. I also have clients who are in this transition space, right? They're like, I'm 20 years in, I don't really I've loved my career, but I kind of don't know what to do with it now. And so they're wanting to explore some different paths, maybe entrepreneurial paths, maybe paths into academia or into more management executive positions. And they just kind of want some time to explore that space and then create a path forward so that they have something to do. I have people who are getting ready to exit the workforce and they have spent so much of their life on their work that they don't know what to do when retirement comes. And so they're wanting to think about that transition and think about like, how do I find a hobby at 60 something? And what am I going to do with all this time and energy? So I have some people on that space. And then the last group that I have is some new professionals who are out in the workforce and maybe it's not quite what they expected it to be, or maybe they're bumping heads against some old ways of thinking and they want some help to kind of navigate some of those challenges that are arising. And so I love the fact that I have all this diversity within that base, right? So they're all a little bit different. I would tell you in terms of common themes, learning how to care for themselves is definitely one. Very OT, right?
Yes.
So I get to use lots of OT there. I would say another one is working on self-confidence and trusting their decisions and knowing that they have that ability to make those decisions for themselves. So I would say that that's another trend that I see. The third thing that I see quite a bit is people who believe that they have to show up a certain way for others, not because they want to, but because they think it's expected of them. And so I use a strengths-based approach to my executive coaching. And so really helping people to understand where do your strengths lie and how do you lean into those so that you can show up authentically.
Yes.
It takes a lot of energy to try and pretend to be somebody who you're not.
Yes.
So let's not do that. Let's not spend a lot of time in that space, right? And so those are probably three of the trends that I kind of see regardless of what area people are in.
Super interesting. And I completely see the psychosocial OT skills that may come into play as you're just processing some of these things, maybe even helping folks recognize their resistance to, making changes or just showing up authentically. So I love it. Are these services offered individually, one-on-one?
They are. So right now, I primarily do individual appointments. So after the first of the year, I'm going to be doing some team-based and group coaching. So I'm excited to be able to roll that out. But right now, the majority of my clients are individuals. And so they're individual sessions.
Okay. Wonderful. I'm sure that once you get your group coaching sessions rolling, that's just going to bring another dimension and perhaps even, just like we do in our OT sessions, right? We sometimes when folks are participating in individual sessions and groups, there's just it brings about nice chemistry, right? Because there's a lot of skills that people could really gain from groups and from interacting with each other that may not be available to them just working one-on-one.
Yeah. And I think the nice part about groups too is that for some people, it makes coaching more accessible because it's more affordable.
Yes.
So that is a piece of it as well. And again, that piece of like learning from other people who are in similar positions, one, hearing that maybe they're battling some of the same challenges that you are. Two, hearing what their strategies are, what's worked for them, what hasn't worked for them. And then it's more people to help hold you accountable to that growth.
Yes.
And I think, I'm a big believer in accountability partners. And in many ways, that's what a coach is. It's that person who's saying, so how did this go? And I find that my clients do their work because they're like, I don't want to show up for my next session and tell you I didn't do it.
Yes.
So, and I think we all have that, right? It's like if you have a trainer at the gym and you go at 5 a.m., that's what gets you out the door at 5 a.m. because you know somebody is waiting there for you, right? So I think there's so much that the group coaching dynamic will be able to kind of bring to the equation as well. But the one thing that I think I'm really excited about is being able to get that accessibility piece for it, because it makes it more affordable for different groups and populations for sure.
Yes. Can we segue into that as far as charging? Mm-hmm. How do you charge for your services? It's private pay, I'm assuming.
It's all cash-based. Mm-hmm. I have different plans. I have 3-month plans, 6-month plans. So we can do it that way. I would say that, so executive coaching, for my, people who are in executive positions that's a different like line item than somebody who's in that transition phase, or somebody who's in what I like to call Spark, mm-hmm. which is my new professional, services that I offer. And so I have different lines there. I will tell you, I think that one of the things that excites me the most about some of the changes that I've seen in the entrepreneurial business sort of side of OT practice is the shift to cash-based services. Mm-hmm. Because it shows that we're embracing this new way of thinking and not just following a reimbursement model, right? So that really excites me. And I'm excited because like there's other groups that are out there doing that. There's like concierge physicians, and there's like all, private pay cash-based is happening everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so I think that that's really wonderful. I will say something that I started to do is for years I did not accept honorariums. And that in part was because when I was like at AOTA, I wasn't permitted to accept honorariums. So I kind of like, after 15 years, you get into the habit of just like, no, you're good. Like, let it go. It's really no big deal. And at the end of the day, it's still not about the honorarium, but what I have started doing within the last couple of months is any honorariums that I do receive, I'm turning into scholarships for people who have financial need for coaching, which has been really fun to create.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, just this way to be able to say, like, I recognize that this mm-hmm. might not be attainable for you right now. So people are able to apply for those. And I think that is an important element, because the one piece that still hurts my heart a bit about cash-based services is that you have to have some level of ability to be able to afford it. And, so I have some people who save for it, which is great, because they're determined and they're, working towards that. And then I also have, ways that I try and subsidize for those who have financial needs. So that was an exciting thing that I launched in the last couple of months. That was kind of fun.
That's great. And I share the sensitivities towards overcharging, and I have a lot going on in my mind about that too. And I hear a lot of OT entrepreneurs or OT coaches for entrepreneurs mention that, and really, it has a lot to do with our feelings of self-worth and whether, we really are worthy of getting paid cash, right? I was just telling an OT student yesterday about how when I went to OT school, I expected to work in a hospital after school. In fact, I knew I wanted to go into mental health. And what did I do? I found a job in mental health in a hospital, because that's what we were supposed to do back then. I had no idea that there were so many options, and I'm on the same boat of this whole cash-based model. People are charging cash for so many other things. Why not occupational therapy? Right. So mm-hmm. it's really understanding our value mm-hmm. and charging for that accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and thinking about like where is the place that they want to make that investment in themselves. And it truly is an investment in themselves, right? Yes. And so that's the way I look at it. That's the way they need to look at it. And so it is. But there is it takes a while for us, I think, to get comfortable in that space, because we haven't necessarily been oriented to that from the very beginning. And so I do think it is an area where OT professionals kind of struggle with for a bit, and then they do get comfortable with it, but it takes some time.
It does. And, even when you're already in the process, you still kind of shift back and forth because of those thoughts.
Absolutely.
So this is really where coaching helps, right? And this is where coaching comes into play. And, when you mentioned earlier about being the accountability person, right? I think what better accountability person to have than an OT? We have a special lens to really recognize, to be able to ask the right questions. I also ask 1,000 questions. I feel that it's, really important to ask the right questions. I used to always say that you have to ask the right questions in order to get the answer that you're looking for. So, just because you don't get the answer, don't assume it's because of the client. Think first whether you asked the correct question. Yeah. So, I think, that's just our OT assessment eyes coming into play, but no better accountability partner out there than an occupational therapist. So I completely see that. And thank you for giving us a little bit of a glimpse on what a day might look like for you, typical clients, and how those clients are actually paying for your services. Mm-hmm. I love that you've added this piece there where you can make your services accessible to those who can't afford, because I'm sure they could really benefit. Mm-hmm. Anything else that you would like to add as far as that is concerned?
Yeah, no, I think it's something to be mindful of. And I think as OT entrepreneurs, it's important for us to think about how do we grow our services and also think about that accessibility piece simultaneously. And thinking about different ways that might look. And rather than saying, well, it can't be done, saying, how could it be done? What are the different ways, right? And so I don't ever think that anything is completely unattainable, right? So I like to think about well, what are the different ways? Okay, so we haven't done it before. Yep, this is out of the box. This looks a little bit different. Just because it hasn't been done doesn't mean it can't be done. Mm-hmm. It's worth a try, right? And maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work. I'm going to learn something from it either way, right? I think about it the same way as how we develop our negotiation skills, right? Yes. And I don't know about anybody else, but full disclosure, I learned how to negotiate by not negotiating well. Right? Because nobody really taught me how to negotiate, yes. Especially for salary. Mm-hmm. So I learned how to negotiate for salary by not negotiating well for my own salary at times. And then saying, okay, I need to get better at that. And how do I get better at that? And what does that look like? Mm-hmm. And so I walk into any sort of a negotiation now very different than I did 20 years ago, 15 years ago, right? But it's about making mistakes along the way and learning from them and saying, yes. Okay, now how can I pass this on to others so that they might be able to learn from it? And I think that there's a richness in that.
There is. I know this might be getting into a little bit of your coaching expertise, but is there anything quick that you can tell our listeners about negotiating? Any quick advice that you can, give us on how we can negotiate a little bit better for ourselves?
Oh, absolutely. I think the number one thing is to know your value, right? What do you bring to the table that maybe somebody else doesn't bring to the table? Number two, what are you going to bring to this organization? What can they expect to see from you? Yes. Right? So how are you going to help them get closer to their goals and make what they want to have happen? And I think, something else that I think is really important is, and I see this a lot in my female clients, don't negotiate for something that's 5 years down the road, right? So I hear people step out all the time and they'll say, well, I'm really grateful for what they offered me because I might want to work part-time when I have kids. Mm-hmm. That's great, but you're not
there yet.
You're not there yet. You haven't even found a partner yet. We're just right. So don't give away something that you don't need to give away. Mm-hmm. And, really recognizing your value, I think, comes from that. And I do think coaching plays a part in that because sometimes you need practice to have that discussion so that when you go into the negotiation, you're confident in how you say it.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's a key point as well.
Thank you for that. I'm going to be heeding that myself. So switching gears a little bit, I know we've talked a little bit about your career path and where you are now. Can you share with us some recent highs and recent lows, recent successes and recent challenges that you may have had in your recent role?
Yeah, I think my biggest highs in my recent role has been watching my clients succeed. I find great joy in that. I would also say that owning my own schedule and life is it's so empowering. It feels so good. I love it. I love every part of that. In terms of challenges, I have to say, so every once in a while, the question comes to me, so you left the field.
Yes.
You left OT. And I was like, well, I haven't left anything. And I have zero intentions on leaving. No, I did not leave the profession. I believe in this profession to the core of my being. I still teach in post-professional programs. I, did not leave the profession. Just how I'm using my skills is different, right? But I think, the challenge comes from people look at me and say, why would you leave a tenured academic position to do this?
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you that it was a big challenge to step away from academia because academia provides a comfort that clinical practice does not provide. There's a comfort there. There's a safety there that makes it more difficult to step away from. And at the same time, I'm a big believer that when you know you need to step away, you should, right? Don't stay somewhere just because it feels safe.
Yes.
Because not loving what you do will wear on you and will wear on the people that you love and the people that you come into contact with, right? And it's not that I didn't love teaching. I loved teaching. I just felt like there was maybe better work that I could do on the outside of the academic arena. And so decided to make that shift. But I will say, I get some looks from people, one, about people thinking I left the profession, which I did not do. And two, from people who think that, you were tenured and you left an academic environment and for what?
Yes.
Well, because I wanted to.
Good for you.
And I believe in myself. So, right.
Yes.
I think that there's an element there too.
Yes. I completely relate to that as well. I had a job, which I felt like I had forever in New York before I moved to California. I was there for 15 years. I developed these programs. It was my baby. People were wondering, why, what are you going to do in California? What do you do? What's happening? You left barrier-free living. Yes, I did. And not because I hated it, but just because I was ready to move on to a different chapter in my career and my life, right? Yeah. Because as an OT, I know better for myself. I know that sort of embarking on a different journey is going to ignite me professionally and personally. And again, it's just going to add to so many dimensions in my life. So I completely relate to that. I want to go back to what you said about leaving the OT world, right? And I don't think we can ever un-OT ourselves anymore. Once we become an OT, you're an OT forever. And, I'm just hearing a lot about this piece about, leaving clinical work. And if you leave that type of work, you're no longer an OT. And, again, I don't understand those words just because I'm OTing every day, wherever I am, no matter what I do. So can you speak to that a little bit, please?
Yeah, it is funny. So I've always maintained a clinical practice in some way, shape, or form. So whether it's home health or I've done some work in the hospice realm, palliative care realm. In the recent years, I've done some adolescent mental health. I always keep my fingers in the clinical world. And that's been intentional because I think when you're teaching, I do believe that it's helpful to still be able to have some of that to go back to. Yes. Because, and I can tell you, I've heard students say this more than once, but like we'll bring in a guest lecturer for something. Like when I was in my entry level program and we would bring in a guest lecturer and they were like, oh, we're bringing in a real OT. And I was like, seriously, like, but I am one, right? Like, it's cute. And also at the same time, you're kind of like, okay.
What do you mean by that?
Right, exactly. And I think it's this idea though, that like it becomes ingrained in who you are and you bring it to everything that you do. And so, you know, my clients will ask me, they're like, so I know I need to work on my self-care, but where did you learn how to work on your self-care? Right. And I can remember when I decided that I was going to like try and have this sort of balance, and it was an OT school. And one of my professors made a joke and she's like, so, you know, we talk about balance between work and play and all of these sorts of things. And she's like, you work for 40 years and then she goes, you play for like 10 to 20, then you work for 40 and then you get to play again. And I remember just like looking around and thinking like, that's not going to work for me. So I'm going to have to create a different plan. Right.
Yes.
So it was really intentional to like want to kind of like bring this together. And I think you can't un-OT yourself. It becomes ingrained in who you are. You look at the world differently. You know, I tell this story. We took our kids to, when we lived in Colorado, we took our kids to the spot where we got engaged. Thought it would be fun to show them.
Aww.
And there were people cliff diving. And so as an OT, you know, I'm like looking at this, I'm like, oh my gosh, these are the people who are going to end up literally in my acute care setting like tomorrow. And we have to like get out of here because I don't want, you know, you want to bubble wrap the ones you love because you know the kinds of things that, you know, can happen. And so, it's just one of those pieces. The world changes OT changes how you look at the world in many different ways and how you approach life. And, it changes, you know, your decision making, what you see, how you see it. And it comes to every part of who we are. You can't turn it off. I don't ever turn off my OT lens. I see it all the time. Just yesterday, my son had a race. I was watching somebody race and I was like, ooh, there's some like musculoskeletal issues in one of the runners. Like they were dropping their shoulder and I was like, they're going to have to work on that scapular retraction. And like and you know, the other coaches were like looking at me like, they're like, I don't know, whatever you say, but you know. So it's just different. Yeah.
Yes. And that's not even the executive coach OT and you speaking. That's like the acute care OT from, you know, way back when.
Life. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, well, thanks so much for sharing some of that fun little tidbits. So in your role as an executive coach, how do you continue to stay abreast in your role? How do you continue to stay on top of, you know, the learning that needs to take place so you can be the best OT that you can be or the best professional for that role?
Yeah. So one of the things that I thought was really important is that in my role as an executive coach, I felt it was also important for me to gain the executive coaching credential. And so I'm just finishing the process of my ICF certification with the International Coaching Federation. And I do think that that's important because it's not just using one lens. It's really merging of different knowledge bases together. And I love to learn. I like to think about like, how can I, you know, help people develop those sorts of things. And so, that was an important and critical factor for me, was making sure that I went and got that additional credential. To learn different approaches and think about like, how does this blend and how does this blend together with OT. And that's where I think the richness has really come from, is marrying the two.
Yes. I can relate to that too. And just how, you're adding, sort of extra spices in your spice jar, right? Mm-hmm. That you can use for, whenever you might call for it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So that's great. Any career advice for our listeners who may be interested in branching out into career coaching or executive coaching more specifically?
Yeah, I think one, if it's something that speaks to you and you want to explore it, I would say, what are you waiting for? Life is short. So explore things. Maybe you'll find out it is something that interests you. Maybe you'll find something else along the way. Both are really great things.
Yes.
Two, I would say that I think that there is this mindset in our work careers that we should get a job and stay there for 15, 20, 30, 40 years, right? Like, I had to really push against this, and really learn to embrace the fact that it was okay that I didn't stay somewhere forever.
Yes.
And that it was totally acceptable. I've learned I'm at peace with it. It does not bother me. I can move and transition without any problems. I got to this place though by very purposeful work, because I grew up in an environment where that, my role models were all just staying somewhere, and they were filling their work years with one role. I don't think the world works like that anymore. Mm-hmm. I think it's okay to say, what do I want to do for the next 10 years? And then do that, and then say, and now what do I want to do next? Yes. I think our careers are filled with chapters, and I believe that it's okay to turn the page to the next chapter. And it's okay to say, I'm going to build upon what I've had and embrace it and say thank you to it, but I am going to turn the page, because there's more that I want to do, and there's more that I want to offer.
Yes. Well, thanks for so bravely showing us that it can be done. It's such a difficult concept for folks to embrace, just because, again, people have different circumstances and responsibilities. But our profession offers such versatility in that sense, where we can transition from different things. And you're right about the chapters. The way I look at it is that, when would I have the opportunity to do that if I were still doing this, right? Or how would they have the opportunity to work with me if I can't be in two places at once, right? So it's giving opportunity for things to arise by giving them space.
Yeah. And I think too, the last 18 months have been hard for people. They've been some really hard months, and I don't think any of us saw it coming. And I know I didn't see it coming. Mm-hmm. And so, thinking about that and saying, what's really important to me? What do I want to do? And saying that now, look at all the different ways that we have, that over the last 18 months, we've all really gotten pretty comfortable with, right?
Yes.
So,
like this.
Yes, like this, exactly. And saying that it can be done, different things can be done, and just being willing to kind of explore it. And rather than saying, oh, I could never do that, saying, I'm going to explore it and see what it might look like, because I would say that it probably can be done. And it's just a means of finding the way that works best for you. And, it's been a wonderful journey. I'm so enjoying it. I love being able to be out here, being like an OT in the wild, right?
I love that.
We're taking our knowledge and we're just using it in different ways, and really being able to generate this, just a newfound way of being. And I am excited to be amongst, all the other, entrepreneurs and, uncommon OTs who are out here in the wild creating our own way.
Oh my gosh. I think we just found ourselves another quote here that's going to inspire millions of OTs out there. I've written it down and we've got it recorded. So I'll email that to you later.
I love it.
Are there any common myths or misconceptions that you'd like to demystify or call out today?
Oh, dear.
Where do you begin?
Where do you begin? So I will say, as somebody who's transitioned into, using my OT lens in this executive coaching space, the number one myth that I think I see is that people come to me expecting that I'm going to have all the answers for them. And rather than giving them the answers, I generally ask them the questions that help them find their own answers, because my path is not their path. Mm-hmm. And they have to find, that best way. So I think that's certainly a myth that's out there. When I think about our occupational therapy profession in general, I think a myth is that I can't do that because somebody won't pay for it. It's like the biggest one that I hear, and I will tell you every day of the week, maybe somebody hasn't paid for it yet.
Yes.
That doesn't mean that they shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so thinking about what that looks like, and also changing up how we think about payment, right? So it doesn't have to be the insurance industry. What does this look like? How might it look different? How could I create a cash-based business? What about partnering with a concierge medical practice? There's all kinds of different ways to go about what we do. And so throw your idea out there and explore the different ways. I think that those are two myths that I hear a lot. The last one, and I think this is probably more for your female listeners, but this idea that they have to wait until, they have time to be able to explore this. And I would say that the best gift that you can give to yourself and your family is to explore some of those paths sooner rather than later.
Yes.
Because I think nothing can transform a life and a family more than somebody who has joy in their work. We spend so much time at work that doing work you don't love is incredibly exhausting. And so finding a way to create that, if you don't have it, I would say please act.
Yes. And in fact, you're saving yourself some time and probably money too by taking those actions. Yeah. So thank you for demystifying some of those pieces. I don't even know how to begin to thank you for your time with us today. I have one last question for you, or not really a question, but more, for you to just add to a little bit more. I talked to you about a quote that you're very known for, and it says, OT is more than a job. It's a calling. This is probably a quote that most American OTs know about, and most American OTs have found to be inspiring, just like myself. And I was hoping you could just shed a little bit of light into that and maybe what that means for you and your OT path.
Yeah, so that quote came to be actually, it was part of one of my presidential addresses that I did when I was AOTA president. And I really saw that in action early on in my career. OT was in high demand in the 90s when I came out into the profession. And then we experienced a payment shift and we saw a big change. And we saw a big change in our workforce as well. Our workforce numbers changed. Our number of student enrollments changed. And that quote emerged from there because the people that I really saw who persisted in the profession at that point were the ones who came to OT because it was a calling.
Yes.
They were passionate about this work regardless of the circumstances that surrounded it. And I believe that for many of us who find it a calling, we persist and we find our way regardless of what the outer policies or environments might be demanding. And so for me, I go back to those words when I am starting to feel like I'm falling into a rut, or I'm starting to feel that burnout start to like come up within me. And so for people who might be out there feeling some of those feelings of burnout, I would ask them to spend a little bit of time doing their favorite, like, reflective activity. Maybe it's walking on the beach if you're fortunate enough to be out in California. Maybe it's yoga in the morning, or maybe it's like, for me, it's my morning run. Whatever it might be, walking your dog, doesn't matter. And just think about how this profession has called you and what it's calling you to do. And really reflect on that, because I think that can be our anchor, and it helps us to bring our best self to our day.
Yes.
So that's really what it means.
Well, thank you for adding that extra dimension. I love learning that. I've used this quote as a means of inspiration for many years, and I love learning the extra piece about how this was really speaking to the OTs of the 90s, in which I'm a product of. No wonder it spoke to me even more loudly. So, wow, I love that. So thank you for sharing. This has been such an enlightening, inspiring, warm, and just brave conversation. I really love everything that you've shared with us. I very much appreciate your time and all of the information, the personal stuff, the little tidbits, the stories that you shared during this hour. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners, Dr. Lamb?
No, so first off, and I should have told you this very early on, Patricia, but please call me Amy all the time. Like, that whole doctor thing, while I'm incredibly proud of it, that degree has opened up doors for me. But who I am at the end of the day it's Amy, and I'm very proud of it. But I just want to express my gratitude to you for this conversation and for the confidence to reach out. And I'm so glad that Lauren connected us. I love how small the OT community is, but I'm so grateful for the conversation. And I just hope that we can continue to stay in touch. And also that, anybody who has any questions, they can feel free to reach out to me anytime. The one thing that I really like people to know is that one of the things I really enjoy is being able to have really authentic conversations with people. And so this was a great opportunity to do that. And I love to do that. So anybody can reach out anytime.
Thank you so much. We're going to include your contact information along with our show notes. This has just truly been a dream. This was the theme of the show, is to have authentic conversations with uncommon OTs. And here I am today having the most authentic conversation with Amy Lamb. Thank you for this moment. I'm in OT glory right now. And, just the value that this will offer to so many OTs out there listening to us. So again, thank you for your time. And I would love to have you back again for a chapter 2, talking about anything else that you want to.
That sounds great. We'll just have to make sure that we absolutely do that. Thanks so much, Patricia.
You're welcome. And that wraps up another episode of the Uncommon OT series. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time. Please follow us at www.transitionsot.com. Thank you so much to our guest, and thank you so much to all of you for listening. Until next time.